I would like to call our next keynote speaker for the evening. Let me tell you something about him. His discussion underscores the profound impact these elements have on our perception of space. His approach challenges us to explore new ways of creating environments that evoke powerful emotional responses. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome architect Arjun Rathi from Arjun Rathi Design, Mumbai, who will speak on light, form, and emotion.
Good evening, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to thank Greenlam, Manish, and all the team to sort of having me here and hosting me and having me speak to everybody here. So I'd like to sort of share a little bit of my work, my journey with architecture, how I've transitioned to lighting design, and the various sort of experiments that we've been doing. So the whole idea of light, form, emotion, sort of where it comes from. So my first sort of idea of lighting actually came through film photography. I used to shoot a lot with the camera. And while shooting with film, I used to sort of experiment a lot. And that used to sort of give me these very interesting sort of like patterns in the pictures, which sort of got me very interested with light in general. And architecture became sort of the first medium that I really wanted to experiment with. And I started my practice in 2012. Where that building in the right corner over there, it was a sustainable building that I was building at the Mundra port. And very typically in India, when you start construction, it's very hard to actually complete a project, where midway through the project got cancelled because of an issue with the client. And 2012, it was the first project, and I said, okay, let's look for more work. And in that process of looking for more work, a very close friend's birthday was coming up. So I made a lamp to gift, for his birthday. And this lamp got published in a few magazines, which led to a first custom commission of lighting at that point, which was something very sort of an architectural-inspired grid light, And through this light, it suddenly led to a lot more lighting opportunities. So for a long time, the studio was experimenting architecture, lighting, interiors in different ways. And while we were experimenting lighting mainly, I was really enjoying the experimentation of material. Sort of taking ideas of architecture, applying it in a very micro format was something very interesting for me. And slowly started sort of taking my ideas of architecture into product, into installation, and some of the early work started just exploring like material in a very interesting way, which sort of over time started to get more and more refined as I got more introduced to new materials. So these were some of the first pieces which were sort of inspired by the Doordarshan Tower. It is still the tallest structure in Bombay. And sort of it inspired this series of lamps for me in 2014, which sort of really got the journey of lighting really sort of going ahead for me. So a lot of the earlier work, as you can see, was very industrial in nature. And as the journey progressed, I got introduced to more and more materials, more and more ideas. I got to experiment with a lot more designers. This was one of the first pieces which we executed in 2016, which was exploring the 5 elements inspired from the shikaras on our temples, exploring earth, fire, wind, ether, the 5 elements. And we started exploring glass as a medium over here. So here again, sort of like, so sort of taking the concept, as our journey progressed, we got to experiment with a lot of architects across the country. And this was about the time around 2016, 2017, where we started exploring transitioning our practice fully into lighting, where a lot of homes were experimenting with different materials. And one really interesting thing I wanted to do with lighting was to create very multifunctional pieces where just by changing the color or changing the material, you could make it very adjustable and it could fit into different contexts over there. So here again, like these were some of the earlier experiments, what we were doing, where grids were a big part of me sort of designing architecture. As architects, we love doing structured forms. And a lot of these structured forms slowly started evolving into our work, where grid lights were sort of one very easy way to cover large areas, large living rooms, The other one was a clubhouse. We started experimenting with Indian crafts. The craft over here you see is a wooden lacquer craft from Chennapatna in south of India, which is generally used for toy making. And we started applying that into our work over there. Here again, sort of like taking the same concept of grids into glass. So a lot of our experiments in lighting have been very architecturally inspired over the last few years, and that was something which was very exciting for me, where we took almost most of our experiments as micro-architecture in a certain way. Here again, sort of like working with deconstructed rings. In college, there was a very strong movement of architecture called deconstructivism, which was very inspirational for me to see how architects would deconstruct homes into different elements and then apply that into their projects. And that was something which sort of helped us create this series of lighting of deconstructed rings. Here again, we started to take that into formal loops as well. And these were some commercial projects what we were executing. I think the main idea of lighting over here for us was that we were able to take concepts of architecture and shrink them into sort of like, to be applied for commercial projects, for homes, for various other spaces. This was like one of our first retail collections that we had released around 2017. It was inspired from the Bauhaus movement. As architects, Bauhaus has been a very strong influence in our form of education, in our form of construction, in our form of design. And the whole idea of Bauhaus was to make a collection which was industrially manufactured, collaborating with the artisan and the factory. And this was the first sort of like collection that we had launched out, which was able to expand into various other series. Over there, just sort of showing how the Bauhaus collection started getting used into different projects. So just by changing the material, changing the finish, it could be used in different aesthetics. Here again, sort of like showing, all the pieces could also be customized to be used into double height areas. The lamps could be, just by changing the finish from brass, it could go into a luxury project. By using metal and changing the color, it could go into eclectic projects, making the pieces more affordable as well. Throughout that journey, when I was sort of doing my lighting, as a designer, as an architect, it's not very easy to set up manufacturing. And at that point, we used to do all our metal manufacturing with informal setups in Mumbai, where our studio is based. And we used to import our glass from Europe, from China, wherever the project allowed for it. So majority of our glass we used to import from Poland as finished products, and then assemble them here in India with our metal frames and supply to our clients. So recently, sort of, we were able to start the Rural Modern Glass Studio, which is India's first blown glass studio, which is located in Mumbai right after the lockdown, which gave us a lot of fluidity and experimentation capability to sort of experiment with glass and create new forms, create new shapes, experiment with new concepts and ideas. And that was something which was very exciting. So right about the lockdown, sort of, while like a lot of us were figuring out how to continue with our practice, one of the thoughts that came to my mind was that a lot of our interior projects are very muted, very subtle, not experimenting a lot with color. And that was something which sort of drove me to experiment with the candy collection, which was taking inspiration from Indian candies, Indian desserts, trying to bring that nostalgia into design as such. And having the glass studio really helped us sort of experiment with material, with glass as a material, and explore it in a very interesting way. So here again, this is like one of our first projects, which was a banquet project. Just to share this, this project was completed in 2018. It was 123 feet as a crystal chandelier using about 33,000 crystals. There's just a quick AV which talks about that project. And this was the project which sort of, in a way, transitioned us from architecture to lighting. But the only reason we were able to experiment with so many things was because we were architects at that point. So this is a mock-up for a chandelier that we're designing for a site in Mumbai. It's a crystal chandelier that's inspired
from the structure of the DNA, the spiraling, twisting structure with these layers in it. And it's made of 33,600 crystals, the final piece. And this is a quick sort of a mock-up where we can understand how the layers are going to be diffusing with each other.
The crystal that we've used in our chandelier is a faceted crystal. It's got its own shine and sparkle to it. Because when you gather all these 35,000 crystals together and cast light through it, it just stimulates one's mind. Also, when you take a look at the overall form of the chandelier from the sides, all these tiny crystals are suspended towards the ceiling, giving the whole chandelier a density.
The World Towers in Mumbai is the tallest residential building complex in the world. They have an in-house ballroom which has a very linear pre-function area. As a studio, we wanted to accentuate the linearity of the space through interweaving forms that stand out against the simple and elegant interior finishes proposed for the space.
So right where this was the pre-function area for the World Towers, the next AV just shows the banquet which was right inside, which was inspired from the Bombay Sea. So I'll share a very interesting story about the chandelier. The time when I designed it was my first trip to Sri Lanka around 2018, and I had gone to I think to Galle and then to Bentota Beach, and the water was beautifully blue. Bombay does not have this blue in the sea over there anymore. It's very grayish brown, over there. And I wanted to capture that blue sea, what I saw, into a chandelier which represented water. And that's how sort of the whole idea of the blue and the clear came out. Back then, when we were doing a lot of the lighting, we used to also consult with the companies, and that's when we sort of got a carpet company over there to do a beautiful blue carpet for the banquet with us to sort of complement the chandelier at that point. But sort of like, there's a great relation with the Sri Lanka blue in what I saw in Galle in the water into the chandelier over here. Here was something that we had executed around the lockdown. This was a 1,300 square foot chandelier, which was inspired from the gulmohar trees. And this was a site in Kolkata where it had these really beautiful gulmohar trees all around this banquet. And we wanted to capture that in glass and brass. And I think just about the lockdown, like a lot of hotel projects, banquet projects were sort of really growing in a very big way. And all the glass you see over here was something that we had imported from Poland. And this was a project which is it's quite special to me because it was very much of a catalyst for us to start the Rural Modern Glass Studio. So like around the lockdown, when we were importing our glass from Poland, there were a lot of issues in terms of import. It was not very easy to bring things down. And that led us to start the studio in a certain way. Now we produce all this glass ourselves in Bombay itself, at the glass studio itself. So you can see how the rich colors and everything can be done. This is another project in Delhi that we did. This was for the Lodi Hotel. And here, it was again one of our early interior projects where we just sort of transformed the space with one chandelier, one painting, and reupholstered the old furniture that the hotel had to create a new fine dining restaurant for them. at that point. These again, just sort of showing some more experiments in the formal architectural concept of grids, loops, shapes, what we were doing. Here again, we were trying to mix craft and sort of bring that into hospitality. This is again using that Chennapatna craft, which we've been sort of using extensively in our work. This was something that we recently executed through the new glass studio that we had, where all the glass was again hand-blown, and slowly we've started experimenting with more shapes, more color. This was a restaurant project in Bombay, where they had this central sort of a branch floral chandelier to sort of suit the interiors, what they were doing over there. This was a luxury residence that we had worked on in Siliguri in Kolkata. I think like one of the challenges when you're working in a diverse country like India is that everybody has a different concept of design. Modern design in Bombay is very different to modern design in Delhi, to modern design in Calcutta and the South. You know, so over here we had a bit of a neo-classical bungalow where the client really loved the detailing, the classical detailing, and they wanted something modern to juxtapose against it. So we had this large sort of an installation about 23 feet in the center of the atrium. The form was inspired from the Fibonacci spirals in a very 3D form, you know. So it's very hard to take the architecture ideas out from a lot of our work that we're doing in customized works. Here again, like as we got more accessibility to glass and craft as mediums, we started using it in different forms, different ways. This was the staircase of a bungalow where we were able to like design the balustrades and the screen in between the staircase. All the blue color, what you see are sort of, they are wood and glass sort of combining together to create this pop of color over here. Even with the earlier ideas, what you saw with the Shikara, which was designed in 2015, we were able to expand it into larger formats. This project is a very interesting project. It's a house designed by an architect, and this is the entry hall of the house, where you enter from the door, from the swimming pool area, and you have these two large 15-feet chandeliers with a lot of these pop colors of glass, you know, and like sort of, we've tried to use a lot of sacred geometry in terms of the grids, what we've done to create these forms over here. Here again, sort of more experimentation with blown glass craft as our project started to evolve. This was a piece from one of our collections, which I had shown you all that candy collection a little bit earlier. We had titled that whole series as a sugar collection. And we were taking inspiration from Indian food and desserts at that point. And these lamps were inspired from the pan. You know, it's a very strong aspect of Indian culture where we were able to wrap leather and make these forms. And the lights that you see on the right, they were inspired from the texture of the motichur laddu, which is my favorite laddu over there. And we were able to make that in ceramic. So as a studio, we got to experiment with different crafts and different sort of forms and textures and different materials. And that was something I was enjoying a lot on the micro scale. As architects, we all want to experiment with materials on our buildings, but due to lack of opportunity, I started pushing it into product, and that's what the practice evolved into at that point. I'm just going to quickly show you all a little bit about what we've expanded our glass studio into right now. So at the Rural Modern Glass Studio, when I started the studio in 2021, I said that for 10 years of practice, I didn't have access to a glass studio, so I wanted to make it India's first publicly accessible glass studio, where we started inviting designers, sort of students, children to come for experiences. Also, glass as a medium is not something which is very traditional to India. It's something where we had to learn from Italy, from the Americans, and we had great US artists who've been here for the last 3 years, upskilling our Indian artisans, helping us create new forms of lighting, new forms of glass. So here again, just showing some of the workshops and the experiences, what we've been doing at the Glass Studio. The artist on the right over there, Matthew Piepenbrock, he's currently our resident artist at the studio. This was a display we recently did for an art NGO, where we had a lot of children sort of come down and sort of work with our artists and produce some glass art, you know, and really sort of expose, and we are hoping that the next 10 years we can inspire a new generation of Indian glass designers or glass artists through the studio. So here again, just sort of showing some of the artwork that we've been able to expand into. So a lot of these textures of what you see over here are inspired from architecture where we tried to take textures of wood and put it into this blue series called the like driftwood series over here. And now we can apply all these patterns and textures into our lights to create a very nice fluid language of art glass lighting. So here again, just sort of showing a piece, you see the three parts of the red and the blue parts. This is a piece that's joined three parts together on the pipe. I think the video is framing. I'm going to show the next one over here. So here with Matthew, we've been sort of working on a new series called the Sun series, where you can see we've created these glass globes inspired from the sun. And we hope to take these colors and languages into our new lighting to create a form of art glass lighting as such. Also to share, we recently had one of the top glass artists in the world, Grant Garmezi. He's probably the #1 contemporary glass artist. So he contacted us on Instagram earlier this year and said that he loved what we were doing in India with the glass studio and wanted to come down to help us sculpt glass. So this was the first time we actually were able to experiment with glass art at the studio. So the studio started initially to make chandelier parts, but over time it's expanded into glass art, into experiences, just sort of showing a quick process of some of the artworks, what we were able to create with our Indian artisans and Indian concepts. This was a piece inspired by the vulture, which is a very strong sort of a symbol in Parsi community in India. So you can see Grant is just sort of sculpting the like vulture in with our Indian artisans over there. These were just some glass pieces inspired from the daggers that we have in our museums, just to sort of experiment out over there. And this was a series of snakes, which were sort of inspired from diagrams of Shiva that these guys had seen when they had come down. Just going to skip through this because my time is up. But just to sort of like share with you all that we're trying to merge the whole boundaries between lighting, glass art, and create something great. And would love to invite, if people are making a trip to Bombay, would love to invite you all and host you all at the Glass Studio. It's the first studio of its kind in the country, and you all can come down for an experience and see some of our work over there as well. Thank you.